The next assignment coming up in computer science is really about cleaning some code up, and it's not about you're not going to have to write code, but you're going to have to organize it. You will have a link. I'm not on Google Classroom right now as I'm recording this movie, but there will be a link for this messy code file on Google Classroom when you're doing the assignment. So when you get done watching this movie, go to Google Classroom and look for the link to this code right here. So you'll have to click the link for the code, and then you'll have to hit View Code down at the bottom, and you'll have to remix it. You can't edit my code if you don't remix it. Now it's about Star Wars, and if you look over here on the right hand side, here's the thing about this situation. The output over here on the right hand side is fine. There's nothing wrong with the way it looks over here on the right hand side. It looks good. You've got an image, and then you've got a heading and a subheading and a paragraph, and then you've got some like subheadings and list, subheadings and list, subheading and list. You've got a subheading here, you got a paragraph here, you got a little short list here, another, some paragraphs down here. This all looks great. There's nothing wrong with the way this looks. But this over here on the left hand side is terrible, awful. And it's not that obviously the code isn't incorrect. The code's okay. The code's written fine. But the way it's organized over here on the left is just bad. I use the term dumpster fire a lot, and that's true here. This is a dumpster fire over here. So your job is going to be to organize this code and make it a whole lot more readable, so somebody looking at it can make sense of it. And you have to understand some things about the code to be able to do that. So it's going to be a combination of things like spacing some things out, indenting some things, just getting the code organized so that it looks a whole lot better than it does right now. I'm probably not going to do the whole thing, but I'm going to give you some ideas. All right, so let's start here at line number 9, where you see, and it would be, if I'm looking at the very first thing that appears on the page, it seems like we should have an image tag coming here pretty soon because there's that Star Wars image right there. So the first thing I see here is a paragraph tag on line number 9. And so I'm going to do it. And there's more than one way to do this. But you have to think with some logic, and you have to look at the different parts of the code and kind of separate them out and get them organized so they look halfway decent. So I'm going to go right after that paragraph tag, and I'm going to press enter like that. And then here's the image tag, right? Image source equals Star Wars.jpg. I got some alt text in there. And then so right there at the end of that bracket, that's the end of that image tag. So I'm going to press enter right there. And then this is the closing of the paragraph. That image is inside a paragraph so that the whatever comes next will appear below it and will appear like over to the right next to it. All right, now the next thing we see coming up here is an H1 heading. Well, that's a separate piece of the code. So let's do this. Let's press enter, and I'm going to press enter again. This is called white space right here. When you press enter, an extra time or two is called white space, and it makes the code easier to read. I'm telling you, it does. And coders use white space just for that purpose, to make it easier to look at and understand what's what. And here we have this, and here we have that. All right, so like here I have an H1 heading that says Star Wars, and I'm going to come down here to the end of the H1 heading, and I'm going to press enter twice again, because the next thing that we have here, it looks like, I'm looking at the code, the next thing we have here is an H4 heading. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and then I come to the end of the H4 heading right about there. So I'm going to press, and you can press enter twice. You can use white space as desired. But what we're trying to do is just make this a whole lot more easier to understand, to look at and understand. Now, again, here I see the beginning of a paragraph. Okay, so that's the start of a paragraph. So it makes sense. Does it make sense to if that's the start of a paragraph, let's kind of look for the end of the paragraph. So I'm coming along here, Star Wars movies, 2 Star Wars stories, take a look at the list of them. Okay. This article thing is a little bit outdated. It's probably could be updated with some more information, but it's okay for what we're doing. All right, so I found the end of the paragraph tag right there. So I'll press enter, at least leave maybe one gap there, right? Okay, so now we come along to an H3. And this is where, if you look over on the right, you can see how this whole thing is coming together here. There's a heading that says the original trilogy, and then there are those 3 movies that were in the original trilogy, episode 4 and 5 and 6, that came back in the came out in the late 70s and early 80s. So there's an H3 heading here. Let's go find the end of the H3 heading and press enter at least once and maybe twice. I think that might be better. Now, UL means unordered list, right? So there's a list that's starting right here. And we go on down and there's a list item. Well, let's find the end of that list item. Here it is. I found it. End of the list item right there. 1977 bracket / LI. I'm going to press enter right there. Now, there's, some extra space in here. So I'm going to go down here to this next list item and use backspace. Let's pull that up. And then I'll go find the end of that list item. And there it is. I found it. Look. There's a list item that ends and a new one begins, and we don't want those to be right next to each other. That looks terrible. They're too crowded together. It's hard to understand. And so I'm going to press enter there. And then I'm going to go find the end of that episode 6, Star Wars Return of the Jedi, 1983. And then there's the end of the list item. So I'll press enter there. And then you see that /UL, that's the end of the unordered list, right? And those, right now, with the line numbers that I'm working with, line 21 and 25, kind of pair up, right? Line 21 is the beginning of the unordered list, and line 25 is the end of the unordered list. But now, this H3 tag that I have right here, we don't want that right next to the end of the list. Let's press enter twice there. Let's give that a gap. In fact, you could even do the whole indenting thing. Maybe you see how the H3 is indented over? I might hit backspace there and pull that back over here so it's not indented. That might make it look a little bit better. Now I'm going to go down here and, oh gosh, look, at the end of the H3, I'm finding another unordered list. So I'm going to press enter a couple of times there. And now I'm into a list situation again, where I'm coming along here and find, okay, I want to find the end of that list item. Oh, those aren't even. I'd like to make those even. I think it looks better. In fact, I might even go right here. You've got your UL code, mine sitting at line 29, and your line numbers might not match up with mine. It depends on how much white space you put in. But I'm going to go down to the list item on 30 and hit tab. And I'll go down to the list item on 31 and hit tab. I'm indenting those over because I like the way that looks. I'm going to go find the end of that list item. There's that. I press the enter key. And then I'll go find the end of that list item, Revenge of the Sith 2005, and I'll press enter there. And you'll notice that code.org is smart enough to know that, again, using the line numbers that I have on mine, line 29 and 33 are kind of paired up. It's the beginning of a list and an end of a list. So they are slightly less indented than the list items are. You can tell a difference in them. And now, once again, here I have an H3 heading. I'm going to press enter a couple of times to gap that out. I don't want that to be right up next to the end of the list, and I'm going to hit backspace there. So you start to see how this works, right? Here's the end of the H3 heading. I'm going to take that down a little bit. Let me roll this up some and get this up higher on the screen. All right, so you can already tell a difference from the top half of the code where I've been working to put in some white space and work with some indenting and just getting the code organized. Look at the difference between the top half and the bottom half. Man, can't you understand this top half better? Look, you can look at this and say, hey, that's a list. Right? You can look at this really easy and say, hey, that's a heading. Look down at this mess. Man, you can't even see what's what down here. That's terrible. It's just awful, right? So like right here, I'm going to finish this up real quick, but I might hit tab for that list item and go find the end of the list item. Here it is. And then go find the end of that list item. And actually, it worked out pretty well. I'm going to hit tab there and go find the end of that list item. Press enter there. And then we've got another H3. So I'm going to press enter a couple of times. And I'm going to hit backspace to pull that over. Because I kind of like having those headings back over on the left margin there. I'm just going to pull them over to the left margin. And again, you don't have to do everything exactly like what I'm doing here. But you do have to organize the code. So I'm going to come over here. Uh-oh, I see a bracket, OL bracket. That tells me there is a ordered list coming. So I'm going to tab over. There's a list item here. I'm going to tab it over, and I'll go find the end of that list item. Press enter. I'll go find the end of that list item. Press enter. And then there's a paragraph underneath there. I'm going to press enter a couple of times. Right, and I'm looking along here. Where's the end of that paragraph? There's an end of a paragraph right there. I'll press enter a couple of times, and there's an end of a paragraph right there. And I'll press enter a couple of times. Oh my goodness, look how much. And this script thing that appears here a lot of times, don't worry about that. Forget about that. Now, in all of this, all of these changes that I did over here on the left-hand side, nothing changed over here on the right. There was nothing wrong with the code. Don't change the code. There was nothing wrong with the code except that it was just terribly, horribly, no good, very bad organization. Right? And I think I've improved that. I hope so. Right? I might take these, and this is where it kind of becomes up to you, but I might take these headings over to the left. I kind of like that a little bit better. Um, but that sort of becomes up to you. Do you like that paragraph tag indented, or would you rather have that paragraph tag over here on the left hand side? That's kind of up to you. I do like having lists indented a little bit and list items indented a little bit. That's just me. But the thing that you got to do here is you've got to take that code from where it was and get it to where it is organized and looks much better. And you don't really have to change any of the code at all. All the code's fine. You just have to organize it. All right, that is your mission on this assignment for today. So off you go. Oh, and share it. When you get all done, come up to the share button, click that, click the link, turn it in when you're done, because I want to see how you organized your code. That's what I'm going to be looking at. Did you get it nice and organized? All right, off you go.